The burqa row may have started in Reform and may have been kicked off by Sarah Pochin, but it's quickly moved over into the Conservative Party, and Kemi Badenoch has picked this up. This piece of fabric that's become the latest prop in a culture war. And the face covering worn by a tiny fraction of Muslim women in Britain is now elevated to a matter of national urgency. The debate was reignited in Parliament when Reform's newest MP, Sarah Pochin, rose at PMQs last week and asked whether the government would consider banning the burqa in the name of public safety. A question less aimed at legislation and more at provocation, the result a very British gasp, audible disapproval in the House, followed by Keir Starmer sidestepping the question itself like a puddle outside a mosque. And but the facts. In the UK, there is no law banning religious face covering, and individual employers may impose dress codes, but they must prove any restrictions are proportionate and for a legitimate aim such as communication, security or hygiene. We're not in France, nor, despite Richard Tice's assertion, are we in Denmark, Austria, Belgium or Bulgaria. We're still just about in a country that considers state intrusion into wardrobe to be something of an overreach. Kemi Badenoch, however, has now entered this debate with all the subtlety of a Daily Mail editorial. She has stated she refuses to meet with any constituent who wears a burqa, and equating it in her mind with a balaclava, as though a woman consulting her MP about school catchment areas might be casing the joint for an armed robbery. To be clear, Badenoch says she doesn't support a ban, yet her refusal to meet fully veiled constituents, coupled with her defence of employers banning face coverings at work, signals something else, a creeping normalisation of exclusion under the banner of assertive liberalism. There's a philosophical paradox here. Badenoch insists she believes in freedom for women not to wear what their husbands or communities tell them. But her solution is not empowerment through education, dialogue, or solidarity. It's exclusion in its own form. Show me your face or go away. That's not freedom. It's conditional citizenship. Meanwhile, Reform UK, having dressed itself in the costume of free speech, has now tripped over its own hem. Zia Yusuf, their Muslim chairman, resigned in protest at Pochin's burqa question. Not, he insists, because he opposed a ban, but because the party asked a question it wasn't even prepared to answer with policy. He called it dumb, and he was right. Of course, there's a little bit of backpedaling here. Reform's strategy is obvious. They're not legislating, they're baiting, and the aim is to force Labour and the Conservatives into culturally awkward positions. If Starmer says no to a ban, it sounds out of context as if he supports the burqa. If Badenoch says yes to personal liberty but no to meeting constituents in face veils, it sounds confused, or worse, it sounds authoritarian. Actually, this was the position taken, I think, by Jack Straw. This is not about garments. This is about what kind of country we pretend to be. And we need to remind ourselves, burqas are extremely rare in the UK. Most Muslim women in Britain don't wear face veils. The niqab and the burqa remain marginal choices even within the Muslim population. The suggestion that they pose a broad threat to social cohesion or public safety is, not to put too fine a point on it, nonsense. The facts are not the issue here, symbolism is. By fixating on the burqa, politicians on the right can perform their commitment to British values without tackling the actual structural issues affecting those values: poverty, alienation, and the erosion of community institutions. Badenoch throws in cousin marriage and Sharia courts for good measure, a rhetorical 3-in-1. But she doesn't provide evidence, only implication. This is a speech designed for applause lines, not legislative clarity. It's culture war theatre, a page borrowed from Farage's playbook. And it backfires, of course. The kind of gesture may thrill Reform's core voters and give Badenoch headlines in the Telegraph, but it repels the broader electorate, who are looking for seriousness, not a party obsessed with face veils, but one dealing with failing GP surgeries, antisocial behaviour and broken transport systems. You cannot run a country on the politics of provocation alone. Worse still, in trying to out-reform reform, Badenoch hands them the narrative. If she is tougher than Farage, she only validates his frame. The whole affair also raises deeper questions about liberty. Should the state regulate religious dress? Should MPs decide who they'll speak to based on appearance? Should we legislate on the hypothetical coercion of women without first asking those women themselves? Surely the liberal answer, the conservative answer, one might say, is to let people wear what they choose and confront the real coercion where it occurs, not through blanket bans, but targeted support. Not by grandstanding at PMQs, but by building trust on the ground. Kemi Badenoch, incidentally, doesn't have the support of her shadow cabinet on this one. Kemi Badenoch likes to position herself as brave Badenoch, but her true political courage lies not in confronting veiled women in her constituency surgery, or it shouldn't, but in resisting the temptation to scapegoat them for problems they didn't cause. The Burqa debate then tells us less about Islam and more about British politics in 2025. Shallow, theatrical, and perpetually in search of a new enemy. A better question than the one in Parliament that was asked might be this. What does it say about our political imagination that in the middle of a cost for living crisis, a broken health service, and war in Europe, we are arguing about a handful of women covering their faces? This isn't a clash of civilization. This is a distraction from decline.